the core of your submission and your presentation at V2. So to walk you through the process, the dates that I have up over my right shoulder are the ones that you ought to be keeping in mind. April 9th is the due date for the pitch decks, and I'll explain those in a minute. There will be an evaluation, a filtering by a panel of angel investors, and the finalists announced on April 14th. There'll be about a week and a half, and then the V2 pitch evening is on April 23rd. So what's involved with this? Our competition is based in two parts. One of them, we call it a pitch deck. It's typically a PowerPoint file of 10 slides max. Could be a Prezi file with the equivalent of 10 slides. But most people pick PowerPoint and do an annotation, their talking notes. This is what the first filtering is on. Your pitch deck, 10 slides with your notes. A panel of 3 or 4 angel investors will filter those and select 4 finalists to present on V2 pitch evening, April 23rd. The pitch itself for those 4 finalists consists of 7 minutes of platform time and a chance to present up to those 10 slides. Just a quick side note, they don't need to be the same slide. So you can, if you're developing your idea, developing your venture between the 9th and the 23rd, you're free to update your PowerPoint file, but understand that the filtering, that first cut, will be based on the 10 slides that you submit on the 9th. So most of what I'm talking about today is going to be around building that pitch deck, giving you some ideas about what works, what doesn't work, the mechanics of it, what the content ought to be. And then I'll show you some videos from the V2 pitch competition. If you haven't seen them before, you'll get a chance to see what the pitches look like in real time. How many people have been to the V2 pitch competition maybe last April or the one before? Okay, only a few people, that's good. Okay, so this information is going to be new and I hope useful for most people. You're welcome to ask questions as I go along or at the end. We've got, I think, plenty of time to go over the material that we need to. So that's a starting point. Now, here's the setting for talking about pitches. As you're developing a business, the question comes up, how are you going to fund it? How are you going to pay for whatever expenses you have, hiring salespeople, contracting for people to write code, buying equipment, whatever it is? You either can self-fund, meaning that you have resources available. You have savings, you have something you can mortgage, some property you can liquidate, in which case you kind of estimate, yeah, I think for the burn rate that I have over the time that I have before my business starts to produce cash for me, and I'm talking about cash, not revenues and expenses, I'm talking about cash. Before the business yields enough cash for me to pay my own bills, I can fund it on my own, or alternatively, I can't and I've got to go outside. So think about this branching on funding. Where are you going to get the money, the cash to pay for your business? Self-funding means, like I said, you can raise the money yourself, or you have the money available from your savings, or outside funding. Banks are usually not players in this space. They like collateralized secured loans, and entrepreneurs, lots of them don't have that. If you do, great, you can borrow money from a bank. But for the most part, when you're going outside, you're talking about angel investors who are individuals with high net worth and who are investing their own money in new startups. Because it's their own money, the range of investment that they make is typically smaller than venture capitalists. And then venture capitalists are what are called managed funds. These are individuals who spend all their time allocating and investing money that has been put in their trust by high net worth individuals or by institutions. So they're usually big investments. Okay, so what's the point of all this? I think a pitch, knowing how to pitch, is worthwhile in either setting. So for the most part, when you think about a pitch, it's usually meant to get in front of investors and have them provide the money that you need to cover your cash needs while you build your business. But that's not exclusively the case. So that's principally the audience for a pitch, and it is on V2 night. But if you're self-funding, you might also want to have a pitch ready to attract key employees, someone who you really need on your management team, or to attract the confidence of a supplier or a customer who incur at least opportunity costs in dealing with you as a new entrepreneur. So pitches have a lot of utility, even though the main target, like I said, are investors. Is everybody with me so far? Okay, so now the idea of a pitch is a special vehicle, a special communication that is different from a business plan, and it's different from other documents that you might generate as an entrepreneur. And the key part of it to remember is that you have a very short period of time to attract the attention of investors. I'm going to use the term investors, like I said, even though this might apply to employees or buyers or suppliers as well. You have a very short period of time to attract the attention of an investor. And in that period of time, your objective ought to be to get what's called a first meeting. You just want to attract enough interest and confidence in what you're doing in a very short period to have them want to meet with you and learn more. That's it. And I think that if you take a look at this, typically for investors, but for other people as well, you want to develop an idea about what are the main pieces of information an investor is going to want to hear in a short period of time, and then present that in a compelling way. We have this catchphrase, sell, don't tell. And it is to get entrepreneurs away from what I consider kind of a first and easy to make mistake, which is to try to take your business plan or your vision for your new venture and boil it down into 10 slides in 7 minutes. Not the point. You're really trying to sell your idea. You're trying to gain that confidence. You're trying to capture that interest of the investor. We have a USD alum and an angel investor who helps us out with the V2 pitch competition every year. He's one of our coaches. He relates to me that he has the potential to see 1,000 pitches and business proposals a year. 1,000. Now, when you're talking about those numbers, your first job is to say, how do I differentiate myself in front of that investor from the other 999 business proposals that he might see in that period of time? Okay? So sell, don't tell. So you're thinking about giving them an idea of your venture in probably 2 main categories. One of them is your concept. I call it a venture model. What are you trying to sell? Describe your product or service very quickly. There's a mechanical aspect to it. How does it work? What does it look like? And then there's a market aspect to it. How does it create value for your customers so they'll want to pay for it? And how do you create differentiation so they'll want to buy that product or service from you instead of somebody else offering something similar? And then a sense of addressable market and a number of other issues that I can talk about. I'm concentrating on building a pitch deck today, but you also have access on our website. It's called usdentrepreneurshiponeword.com. Lots of resources for you there. But a lot of what I'm talking about is built into a tool or a model. We call it the Lawless Venture Model, or LVM. It's 10 challenges that take you through most of the information you need to sketch out your business, and we actually think about it as an alternative to a business plan, much more streamlined, a checklist format, and gets you through the process of laying out your venture. If you do that, then building this pitch deck ought to be pretty easy. Okay? So first part is your venture model, a description of your product, why it differentiates, how it creates value, and then the second big piece of it is going to be your management team. So why should that investor have confidence in you, in your integrity, in your ability to execute, in your competence, in your commitment to your venture? Those are two main categories that you're trying to get across quickly. So bottom bullet point here, emphasize what's special, remarkable, or different about your venture that would create that confidence. Okay, I've already described this. What is a pitch? It consists of the pitch deck and the presentation. What does it look like? All kinds of formats. You've probably seen the TV show Shark Tank. You know that a presenter, an entrepreneur there gets around 8 to 10 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, and there's Q&A going on. At the V2 pitch competition, we don't restrict our panel of angel investors, but they typically don't ask questions during the pitch segment. They wait until there are one-on-one meetings. They wait till the one-on-one meetings after the pitches are complete to ask questions. So all kinds of pitches. 30-second pitches, 1-minute pitches, 10-minute, 15-minute. Ours are 7-minute of platform time, and as I said, the 10 slides. Okay, I like the garage.com. Average entrepreneur wants to tell all about their business in 38 slides, and investors stop listening after 10. Okay, so everybody with me so far? Any questions about just kind of setting the table for what a pitch is like? Let me before I start digging into what ought to go into a pitch deck, let me just revisit with you a little bit more of the mechanics of the V2 pitch competition. I've already explained that on April 9th, the 10-slide pitch deck gets evaluated. That's annotated slides. On the evening of the V2 pitch competition, we start off with what we call it a poster session. So last year, we had over 70 entrants to V2, and we had 4 finalists. So we're talking about on the range of around 65 people who did not make the finals. But we recognize that winning or getting to be a finalist in a V2 pitch competition is not the only path to success for you as an entrepreneur. There are lots of different ways that maybe our angel investors didn't pick up on that your business could still be successful. So we start off the evening with a poster session. We invited, say, in round numbers, 70 non-finalists in 2014 to present their ventures in kind of a job fair kind of format in the plaza outside of the IPJ. About half of them, about 35, showed up, set up tables, ran a loop on their laptops, set up actually poster boards. We had a couple of ventures that were selling apparel. They roll in a rack of their T-shirts or whatever they were selling. And for about 45 minutes or an hour before the competition starts, people get a chance to see the other ventures, the ones that are not finalists. Then we move into the IPJ. There's a keynote address. Then we start the pitches. So picture a panel of angel investors up on the stage in the IPJ theater, 3 angel investors. Now, this is important. These are not judges. They're not a professor and a Qualcomm executive, and they're going to kind of give their opinion. They're people making these investment decisions in their real careers. So those 3 angel investors are going to listen to the 4 pitches, 7 minutes each. Last year, 2014, we initiated what we think is a really cool innovation. We had the vision of entrepreneurship extending regionally, and so we added what we call a binational track. So there's another track for Mexican student entrepreneurs and 3 more angel investors who know the Mexican startup market. So on the stage are going to be 3 investors for USD, 3 investors for binational track, 4 pitches on the USD side. Last year we had 3, we might have 4 on the Mexican side. After the pitches are complete, we adjourn out of the IPJ theater, and each of the investors sets up in these rooms, spatially separated. So we have a little conversation cluster where each of the investors sits, and each of the finalists, the entrepreneur finalists, meets for 10 minutes with each of the investors. So you can picture 10 minutes per the 3 investors. So each entrepreneur gets a total of 37 minutes in front of the angel investors. This is where the typical Q&A is. They start kicking the tires on the venture, asking about the venture team, how are you going to build your product, who's going to do the coding, how are you going to take it to market. Those are the kind of questions that go on in the 10-minute meetings afterwards. We adjourn from there, go back into the IPJ theater. The investors meet decide how to allocate the fund, which is going to be $50,000 on the USD side and $50,000 on the Mexican side, the binational side. We all kind of wait around for their decision, then the big reveal, you find out how the funds are allocated, and we close out the evening. So that's the mechanics of the V2 pitch competition. And another important aspect of this is that this fund, the $50,000, is treated as an investment fund in the real world. So it's not a tournament with first, second, and third prizes and set amounts. The investors decide on V2 pitch evening how to allocate that $50,000. And it's ended up with some pretty interesting results. For a quick example, last year, 2014, April, $50,000 at stake. One team, Alumnify, got $40,000 out of the 50. So that's a lot of money. That's a game changer for a student entrepreneurial venture. Okay, questions about V2 pitch, mechanics of it? All right, so let's get into the pitch deck. These are the kinds of topics that I think need to go into a pitch deck, and I am recommending, based on my experience pitching myself, based on coaching others, based on running this V2 pitch competition now for the 4th time, what needs to go into that pitch deck. So these are the topics, and they kind of map onto slides, but not exactly. So what do? First, you introduce the pitch. You ought to say the name of your venture. Seems pretty obvious, right? But people don't. They leave it out. The names of your management team and some kind of grabbing headline. And I'll show you the Alumnify pitch in a second. You'll see how, in a few minutes, and you'll see how this gets implemented. So this is probably going to be a first slide. Second is describing the product itself, and as I said, think in terms of 2 main categories, either a service or a product, an app or a widget or a line of clothing or whatever it is. You're going to describe it in 2 ways. One are the physical aspects of the product. So is it a reusable bottle cap that you carry in your backpack and you stick it in a bottle so you don't have to throw away a bottle of water or whatever? Or it could be a pair of shoes, or it could be a t-shirt, whatever it is. You're going to describe those physical characteristics. Then you're going to talk about the market characteristics, and we have a little model that captures a lot of what you need to say in describing the market characteristics. Those 2 main features I told you about before. Really simple questions. 1, what value are you creating? Why is that customer going to pay money for your product? Example, Starbucks. When you walk into Starbucks, you hand over $5 for a skinny latte with drizzle and whip and space and whatever, right? What makes that latte worth more in your hand than $5 on your credit card? That's value. You're willing to trade your money for that product or service. That's value. So what is it about your product that makes your customers want to do that? And then second, given that you've got a value proposition, what is it about your product that's different from other people who are doing something really similar? All right? So those 2 characteristics, and we fold that into a model called DVD. So think about those 2 aspects, the physical characteristics and the market characteristics of your product. Second is addressable market. And a caution here is that new entrepreneurs, first time in the pond, are tending to use big databases and broad demographics instead of talking about who's really going to buy their product and when. So look at those bullet point questions for a second. Who's really going to buy your product? When are they going to buy it? At what price? Are they going to be repeat customers? So you can almost think about a timeline of market penetration for your product. And here's an example contrasting what I'm endorsing and what I'm recommending compared to what I've seen before happen a lot, especially with student entrepreneurs. So look at the bottom paragraph, the bottom block. This is an MBA student of mine from 2 years ago who has since opened up a premium ice cream store in North County, Solana Beach. And the first cut at describing the market was to go out to a database through the Copley Library site and come up with these statistics. So is it incorrect that the average American eats 20 quarts of ice cream a year? That's more than I eat, but it might be accurate on average. But is it useful? Probably not if you're selling ice cream in Solana Beach. So what he really needs to do is narrow down this addressable market issue and say, how many people are willing to pay $4 for a scoop of ice cream, or 5 or 6, plus how far are they willing to travel? Will they be 5 minutes in a car, 10 minutes in a car to get really good special ice cream you can't get anywhere else? So then you have to start thinking about who's really in that group, who's really in that geographical region with that willingness to buy the product. Okay, so this is the idea of addressable market as opposed to kind of broad demographic market description. Does that make sense to everybody? Any questions about it? Okay, so now we've got product and addressable market. Proof of concept. I am very excited about the design feature of the V2 pitch competition, that it involves evaluations and judgments by real angel investors, not judges. On the other hand, they're trying to balance using their real life criteria, investing their own money as if it were not in a university but out in the market against recognizing these are student pitches. So you ought to keep in mind that the closer your venture is to being money producing in the market, probably the more favorably it's going to be looked at by the angel investors. So proof of concept is the next important issue. And I think of it as 3 levels of proof of concept. One is 0, no proof of concept. And by that I mean an entrepreneur has a really cool idea for a product or service and a great argument about why people would buy it. So my bottle cap guy, he's got a rubber bottle cap. You probably have seen these. They're kind of soft rubber. You stick them in a wine bottle and you vacuum the air out and it keeps the wine for a while, that kind of thing. Plus a lid so you can carry it around. So he's got a great argument. This is going to, people drink part of a bottle of water during an evening and then it's left over, and at the end of the evening there's half-drunk bottles of water everywhere. This is going to solve that problem. That's his idea, that there's going to be value and differentiation created by that product. But it's only that person's idea. And it can be really convincing, and investments are sometimes made only on the idea. But for the most part, the closer you get to solid proof that this is really going to work, the better off you are. So the next level on top of 0, the entrepreneur's idea, is some sort of feedback from the market. And here I'm talking about a survey, a test market at La Jolla Farmers Market, collecting data in front of the dorms, doing a survey monkey survey. You're getting some kind of feedback. And you can present that as we have these survey results. The third level is even better, and that's that you get somebody to pay for it. So you've actually sold some of your product. And then there are levels within that. You sold some of it on a trial basis. You made a bunch of paleo diet brownies and sold them at a farmer's market. And you sold a couple of hundred of them and at the price that you wanted, and it's worked out great. If that's what you've got, that's terrific. That is proof of concept that people are willing to pay for your product. The next level after that is sustained and growing sales over time. But the closer you get to sustained and growing sales over time, probably the less you need the investment because you've got your business up and running. Okay? But think about proof of concept as really important. Think about what level of proof is feasible for you, what's doable in the time between now and April 9th, and how you would incorporate that into your pitch deck. Everybody good with that? Conversion, this is typically going to be pretty simple, but sometimes it's left out. How are you going to get people to pay for your product? Is it going to be a subscription? Is it page views? Is it clicks? Is it advertising? Is it selling units of your product? And how are you going to collect? Do you have a mechanism for collecting your money? Is it just a cash transaction, like I said, at a booth at a farmer's market, or is it something more than that? The next two, let's just talk about operations for a second. Now, the next piece of this is to think about the functions that you need executed in order to have your business run properly. So who's going to sell it? Who's going to manage your finances? Who's going to do the supply chain management? Are you going to need inventory? Are you going to need to do shipping? How is that going to be done? These are questions that an investor is going to be asking. So think about this as from the investor's point of view. I've got 7 minutes to evaluate this pitch and the 10 slides in the pitch deck to decide whether I want to take a meeting to go to investment. On V2 night, that's all they get. They get the pitch deck, 7 minutes of platform time, plus the 10-minute meeting. And then they have to decide how much of that $50,000 to allocate. So they're going to be thinking about a lot of it. Why won't this work? A lot of what they're going to be doing is, why will this not work? And thinking about, have you plugged those gaps? Have you answered those why won't this work questions? And this is one of them. How are you actually going to get this product to market? So I had a team that wanted to sell premium juices in a class of mine. This wasn't in the pitch competition. It was just in a class in entrepreneurship that I teach here at USD. And I asked them, okay, so you're going to be making juices. What is your raw material going to be? Are you going to buy fruit in bulk? Are you going to buy puree? Are you going to buy juices that are already juiced and then mix it on site? And they didn't know. So not knowing that operational issue made them look like they didn't really think through their business. So these operational issues, and having thought them through and having anticipated and answered the why will this not work question is really important. And you see it talks about customer acquisition, about processing raw materials, about facilities and so forth. That's all operations. Okay, back to my opening remarks. I said the two main categories that an investor is going to be interested in are your venture model, your business model, and your management team. What are they going to be looking at on the management team? The best credential you can have as a manager, as an entrepreneur, is to have already been a successful entrepreneur. So what do you do if you haven't been? You talk a little bit about your credentials, your business background, your engineering background, your experience in the vertical, in the industry where your business is going to be. But that's still going to be pretty thin. Admittedly, it's going to be thin. Now, the competition in V2 is probably going to be pretty thin too. It's student entrepreneurs. Another way to kind of build a credential, remember, and try to create that confidence on the part of the investor, is to have advisors who do have the credential. So you have kind of referred credibility. So can you sign up someone who has been a successful entrepreneur, or someone who does have a credential of being successful in the space that you're talking about? So an advisory board could be a good substitute for having experience yourself. The next piece is, I call it ask and uses. And here you're going to say, and this ought to occur sometime in your pitch, how much money are you looking for, and what are you going to use it for? And this is going to be a really simple slide, or a really simple part of a slide. It's only going to say top line. I'm looking for $50,000 or $100,000. Or out of V2, you know, $50,000 is at stake. I'm trying to get all 50 of it. And then you're going to say, in very simple bullet points, 2 or 3 categories. I'm going to use 20 of it to build a marketing team, and 30 of it to complete coding on an app and a set of sub-apps that is going to be my service. Done. And I usually give this heads up, is that the bullet point in parenthesis at the bottom of the slide, I urge people not to say how much of their company or how much pro quo, how much consideration they're willing to offer. That's the investor's job. So if you say, I need $50,000, it's up to the investor to say back to you, I'll give you $50,000 for 10% of your company or 50% of your company. It's up to them. Now, again, there are variations on this. Remember I referred to Shark Tank earlier. One of the first things the entrepreneurs say in Shark Tank is, I'm looking for $20,000 for 40% of my company. I'm urging you not to do that, okay? So ask and uses is how much money you are asking for, and in broad categories, what you're going to do with it. Yeah.
How often or how many of the competitors last year asked for the full 50,000 versus asking for? Was it always?
I'm remembering one finalist out of the 4 asked for 50. Okay. Yeah. So some people know that they really need 100, but there's only 50,000 available. So they'll say 50, or they'll say, you know what, I don't want to be greedy. I'm going to ask for 20 and not look like I'm trying to grab the whole thing. So there's different strategies about the ask. Okay, so if there's time, a quick summary statement, which probably would be on the order of repeating the headline from your first slide and thanking. You could ask for questions in some settings. You can ask for questions in V2, but typically we're trying to pace them because there's going to be on the order of 7 or 8 pitches, 7 minutes each, and then the transition as people get up and get ready and so forth. So it's going to probably run around an hour, maybe a little bit longer. So typically questions aren't asked, but you know, you're free to say that. The 10-minute meetings are where you'll take questions and get answers. But finish up with either a slide or a summary statement that says why your venture is the one that ought to get funded and how cool it is. Yeah.
So for the meetings, you said it's only 10 minutes or one-on-one meetings with them. And then what did you say? You mentioned 7 slides or 10 slides? 10 slides, 7 minutes?
Yeah, so let me just walk you through that once again. So this is the timeline for V2. So April 9th, the first cut is based only on your pitch deck. That's 10 PowerPoint slides with annotation that's submitted to us. Then a panel will reviews those, however many we get. Last year, like I said, it was on the order of 65 or 70 entrants. A panel will go through those and filter down and come out with 4 finalists on the basis only of the pitch deck. Then on V2 night, you have the opportunity to present a PowerPoint file or Prezi file of 10 slides, but 7 minutes of platform time. Okay? So 10 slides, 7 minutes.
If you have a software product, should you put a link to that on the pitch deck so they can check it out and play with it, or is it supposed to be?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. This is more on the presentation than building a pitch deck, but you just reminded me of something. 2 years ago, so this is April 2013, the second time that we did V2 pitch campus-wide. Guys were showing an app, and they were trying to demonstrate it on a smartphone, and they couldn't get reception in the IPJ auditorium. So if you're going out on a limb and showing how cool your mechanics are of your product and demonstrating it, you might try to get in here before then and make sure that it's actually going to work in the setting. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then what happens on April 23rd?
That's the V2 pitch night, the evening that I'm describing.
So the winner.
It's 4 finalists.
Okay, so then the 14th is
When the finalists are announced.
Oh, okay.
Finalists announced. So sorry, I just used shorthand there. Okay, yeah, let me clarify. I used shorthand on my, this is a really small space for me, so I just put up some headlines. Okay, so April 9th, the 10-slide pitch decks are due. April 14th, the reviews will be complete and the finalists announced. Then those 4 finalists will have between the 14th and the 23rd to update, rehearse, whatever they want to do, and then April 23rd is V2 pitch night. We have kind of a superstar alum of USD, Jayla Siciliano, who's been very successful, actually a Shark Tank winner. Mark Cuban funded her project. It's called Bon Affair. It is wines that are kind of wine spritzers. You know, some people dilute wine with like a bubbly water. So that's her product. It's called Bonnefiere. She went on Shark Tank and got funding from Mark Cuban. She actually is part of our team, and she brings in her advisors, her advisory board, for a coaching session for the finalists between the 14th and the 23rd. So there's a lot of support. There's actually coaching that's available now. Regina Bernal is coordinator of all this, and her contact information, my contact information, is on our website, usdentrpreneurship.com, USD one word, entrepreneurship.com. And right now we can connect you with a coach if that's what you need, if you feel like that would be helpful to you. We're glad to do that. And coaching goes on during the whole year. So let me show you the Alumnify pitch from V2, and you can get an idea of some tips and some more information, kind of make what I've been talking about a little bit more real, and get stoked to enter. Okay, so you can get a pretty strong visual from this about the layout, the physical setting where the finalists will be pitching. The left side of the screen are 3 investors who are evaluating the USD pitches, and the right side are 3 investors who know the Mexican market really well and are evaluating the Mexican pitches.
Hello, everybody. My name is AJ Agarwal, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Alumnify. And I want to start out just by asking you all a question. How many of you have ever received an email asking you for money? Right? And how many of you have ever received a cold call asking you for money? Right? So have I. So I know firsthand just how awful the experience is. It is one of the worst ways you could ever try to build a meaningful relationship with another person. Unfortunately, emails, cold calls, and snail mail are the main ways that universities are engaging their alumni today. And the results have been horrific. Alumni participation is at an all-time low 9% in this country. Imagine if this auditorium was filled with 250 USD students. When they all graduated, only 23 would actually give back. It's pretty scary. So we wanted to develop a solution that would allow universities to be able to engage their alumni in meaningful ways and help save alumni directors across the nation. We started by going through 2 months of customer discovery. We cold called 850 universities and interviewed 250 alumni. And what we found out was that universities still have not adjusted their methods of engagement specifically to the millennial generation of alumni. When you graduate in today's market, you're going to go through 7 career changes on average. So there's a good chance you're going to move away from your school. And what we discovered was that when alumni moved away from their school, they lost that sense of community that they once had because it becomes much harder to meet other alumni, and there are less alumni events to go to. So we knew we had to design our solution in a way that allowed alumni to take their university community with them wherever they went. We started by building a simple prototype that allowed our users to sign in through LinkedIn. From there, we could pull their major, graduation year, things that they're involved in on campus, and their profession. We could then use that information to pair them up with similar alumni in their area. And then once they connected, we could offer suggestions in terms of alumni events or coffee shops that they could meet face-to-face. What we kept hearing through feedback from universities and graduates was that these Facebook and LinkedIn pages for alumni weren't resulting in meaningful connections. And when you think about it, it makes sense. Now imagine if I tried to use LinkedIn to make a new connection and then ask them to grab a cup of coffee with me. First, I would have to use this advanced search feature and put in all my criteria and look through all these profiles. Then, I would have to send requests to all those people and hope that they would accept that request coming from a random person. And then finally, I would have to ask them to grab a cup of coffee with me. Some people are going to think I'm a little creepy. A lot of people are going to say no, and if I'm lucky, maybe a few say yes. But the chances of that happening are very unlikely, and most people don't want to go through that process. So with Alumnify, we totally decided to streamline it. On our platform, as soon as you sign in, you're given a stack of user profiles. You can either press a handshake or an X button, and when 2 users press that handshake button, they're brought into contact. So you know when you connect with somebody, they already want to meet you in person. They're already in your same area, and they have a similarity to you, whether it's in their profession or their education. And that makes the process much easier and a lot easier to foster those relationships. So as we're testing out this solution, it ends up in the hands of one of the largest donors at the University of South Carolina. He likes it so much, he gets us a meeting with the head of alumni relations. And we explained to him that by getting these alumni engaged early on, we could increase the chances that they would donate money. And that donation would start to serve as a benchmark, and that would increase every time. So over a lifetime, that would create a life cycle of giving. In addition, by increasing the number of donors, we could also help boost school rank. School rank is based in part by the number of donors who give, not the donation amount. So even an alumni leaving $5 helps boost school rank. After explaining this to South Carolina, they gave us a call 3 days later and asked to be added to our beta client list. The following week, we added 3 more schools. And in the span of 2 months, we went from 0 to 8 university clients. And the great thing about our platform is the fact that our clients are also our marketing partners. Each university that we team up with is required to send an email and social media blast to their entire database of alumni. So right now, our app is being reviewed. Once we launch next week in the App Store, in the first 60 days, over 700,000 alumni will be invited to our platform, and we pay nothing for that marketing. Our revenue model is straightforward. We charge universities anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000 to use our platform. For the first 6 months, our universities are on a trial period. After that trial period, those annual fees will take effect. Second, we allow alumni to donate back to their schools right through Alumnify, and we take an 8% transaction from every donation. Our team is built of people who specialize in design, business, and technology. We have people who've graduated from top coding boot camps in Silicon Valley and alumni from Techstars affiliated accelerator programs. But what's brought us together is our passion to create an alumni network that can expand across the globe. We've had an amazing journey so far. We started doing 1,100 customer interviews, and that led us to get into the T-6 accelerator program. From there, we added the University of South Carolina and 7 more clients. Now we're 1 week away from launch, and in the next 60 days, over 700,000 alumni will be invited to our platform. We've been able to build our product, build early traction, and now we're ready to revolutionize this market. Thank you so much.
For the submission on April 9th, I'm not sure if you can do this on Prezi, maybe you can, but in PowerPoint you can annotate the slides and put your talking points at the bottom. So I would recommend an annotated pitch deck, an annotated PowerPoint file. Up to you. But I recommend no more than 2, but that's your choice. Because the transition, I mean, 7 minutes are going to go like that, and unless you got really fast handoffs and people really are valuable, yeah. Right. I would say they're both really important. I think, again, so this is where the first impressions are created, and I think that's really important. But you're right. I mean, if you get down to the points in that pitch deck coaching file that I gave you, they ask a question about, what are you going to buy? Is it going to be juice? Is it going to be pulp? Is it going to be fresh fruit? And you say, I don't know. Not good. So they're both really important. Allison Longpatine was one of our 3 angel investors on the USD side in 2014. She is a member of Tech Coast Angels and an angel investor. I'm going to show you, based on just the question, just a couple minutes, maybe not the whole thing, of the meeting. And like I said, these are all available for you on usdentrpreneurship.com.
I thought I was actually pretty nervous.
Really? No, you did great. Yeah, really like your idea. I should have
I ran out as well, so I'm guilty as charged.
You don't mind me writing your
find me
email?
on this link. Oh yeah, I can write.
Thank you so much. It's okay if we take notes during this, right?
Yeah,
Okay, good.
definitely. So, I know we don't have too much time. There you go. Maybe just tell me a little bit about you guys first and how, the idea generated and why you guys are the right guys to execute this.
Yeah. So Ragosa and I actually met in biblical studies class our sophomore year. And I remember this, I don't want to embarrass Ragosa too much, but he was talking to the teacher and he was talking to her in office hours. And he basically convinced her to go from a B to a B plus just by explaining the situation. So after that,
That's a good sales guy.
I was like, you are good at sales, we should team up. So
Yeah.
then we started actually working on alumni software for fraternities and sororities. And so a month before we were graduating, I had a full-time job planned and everything. We found out we got into a accelerator program in Indiana.
Okay.
And so we went through that process.
You just
Learned-
moved there?
Yep, we
Oh,
moved
wow.
there, I turned down my full-time job.
Wow.
Went all in, parents were freaking out, as you can imagine. And so we went through that program, and at the end of it, I think our biggest takeaway was size of the market. So fraternities and sororities, while it's a great niche market,
Yeah.
it's only really primarily in North America. But after our demo day, we actually started having universities ask us, well, why don't you guys bring this to the university scale? And that's where we saw a huge opportunity. So we switched the idea in August, and then,
This past August?
yes,
Okay.
and then a friend of ours connected us to one of the alumni directors at the University of South Carolina. Loved the idea and asked that we be a part of the accelerator program that's associated with them. We met there, and now we've been going through that camp. So I think one of the reasons why we think that we're great to execute this business plan is the fact that we've been able to be mentored by people from the University of South Carolina. We work really close with them. And also the mentor team that they've provided for us is amazing. One of the companies, Maxient, they have 400 university clients, and they're very close mentors of ours. And so we've really learned the importance, I think, of mentorship going through that.
Yeah. And you guys have, it sounds like, already kind of built a network of universities that are interested in the product, even though you're still pretty early,
Yes, we've had 8 commit. So
which is great.
uh-huh.
So are you guys launched or not yet?
we're
can't remember.
we're being reviewed by the App Store right now.
Okay.
So next week is when we'll be hitting Apple and Android.
Okay. And then you guys are on both platforms.
Exactly.
Are they native apps?
They're native apps.
Okay. And then who does all the development for you?
So we're completely in-house. Michael Greenberg is our CTO, so
Okay.
he primarily does the mobile end of it.
Uh-huh.
And then so what's interesting about our business is that our growth isn't linear. It's more like spikes, because when you add a university, you send on average 100,000 invites. You're going to see a huge increase in traffic, then it level off and a huge increase. So David, he just does all of our back-end server work to make sure we can scale along with our increase in traction.
Okay.
And then I help out a little bit with the design, but we have no outsourcing fees for
Okay.
development.
So tell me a little bit about the product in depth more, because I understand that it's an app, but I guess I didn't quite understand the link between the social aspect of it, like
Right.
the matching of your interests and then alumni recruiting.
Right.
So
It's a good
how does that
question.
all come together?
Yeah, so we based off our solution actually off of a data set provided by the VSE, and it's basically a data set that says why alumni aren't donating, the major reasons. And 3 of the major reasons why young alumni specifically aren't donating are lack of deep connections, lack of university community, and then a lack of job opportunities. So for us, we translate that as all focusing on that engagement feature. So that's how we came up with the idea to attack it from that side. And then we thought, okay, these
So you're engaging other students with each other?
alumni with each other.
Okay.
Correct, yeah. And the reason why we did that is we said, okay, if we can have alumni make deep connections no matter where they are, then they're going to set up those university communities in their area, and that will lead to job opportunities. So by using that solution, it's solving all 3 of those major problems why they currently aren't giving.
Okay. So basically you're connecting alumni with each other,
Exactly.
but there's no direct link to donating back to the school.
Right, like alumni can donate through Alumnify back to their university,
Uh-huh.
but so we consider donations as a byproduct, we
Right.
consider engagement as a value proposition
Okay.
for the universities.
Okay.
Yeah.
So really, the pain that you guys are solving is linking alumni with each other.
Exactly.
Okay. And then is it localized? So, all right. And then the way that happens is kind of through this like Tinder, like sort of.
No, it is. And when universities ask, why do you use the Tinder way of matching?
Yeah.
The honest opinion is because it works.
Well, yeah, it's easy.
Yeah, it's easy.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest reasons why people don't want to connect or meet new people is
Yeah.
a fear of rejection.
Yeah.
And so that model takes it away completely.
I'm going to stop there. So you get an idea. Basically, Allison is really asking about how does this model work? Where's the value created? Who's going to pay for it? And you saw what I think is kind of a little bit of a soft spot, because this is what I call social strategy as opposed to digital strategy, but it's trying to create a community online with the idea that at some point, people who feel more community with each other are more likely to give, but that's not been demonstrated yet. So you see a little bit of a soft spot in their venture model, and she went right to it. So anyway, that's a sample of what it looks like. You also get an idea about the physical format. So that might be in this very room. And if you're not competing, if you didn't make the finals, or if you're just interested, you can sit in on these meetings and just listen to the conversation. So it's a really good opportunity to learn what's going on and learn how this is done, whether or not you're a finalist.